Hey, everybody. Let me just cut the full. Hey, good morning, Substack. Hey, I just wanted to invite everybody. I'll just give everybody a minute to like kind of get in from the email that was sent out. I'll give some time for that email to be sent out, and if you just give me a minute while we're waiting, I have a really urgent thing to talk about. As especially as over the past few months, it seems like there's just been this massive shift in Gen Z. And hold on one second, let me type this out. Talking Gen Z and their need for culture and art and stories and music, and you get the point. There we go. All right. So now that that's posted, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me on the stream. There was this article that came out, and we can get into whether or not it's an actual poll or if it's a good poll or anything like that. I think arguing um, whether the poll is legitimate or not, surprisingly, actually doesn't matter. And I think that gets us into the trap because I think if the poll is true or not true, I think it still creates the same situation that we have. But I'll go ahead. Let's start with reading the article first. And the article says Donald Trump's approval rating collapses with Gen Z. This was actually released July 7th. It was actually a while back ago, but I'm just now seeing it, which is interesting because everybody thinks this is a result of uh, well, but there's probably a lot here. But it shows that Gen Z, there were 1,500 adults show. This is a poll conducted between June 26th and June 30th among 1,597 adults. Show that among Gen Z voters, his net rating has deteriorated sharply, falling negative 23 points in May to negative 41 points in June. The president's approval rating is low at 27%. So 27% of Gen Z believe that Trump is doing a good job. That's pretty awful. And I don't know if you can actually get like a legitimate poll from only 1,500 people. There's a lot of questions as to like where that poll was run, what state, was it a red state or a blue state, was it in New York City, was it at a did they poll 1,597 adults at a trans gay pride parade? Like there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions about that poll, but let's assume, guys. Can you bear with me? Just like let's assume for a moment that poll is actually telling and it's really true, and there's a lot there with that. Let's assume the poll is honest and true. Okay, do that. Okay, so assuming that the poll is honest and true, what happened? What happened in the past 6 months that caused Gen Z to swing this way? Or assuming that the poll is false, is there a concern among us that maybe that this poll might actually be true, and Gen Z might swing back and forth, swing to the left, swing to the right. They might go to and fro with the wind, bend back and forth. And I think this is really important. I really want us to understand this. We Gen Z, it does not have arts and culture that is funded and invested in by conservative crowds. We don't have that. And so the reason I bring this up is because there is no cultural anchor currently for Gen Z. A lot of their music and movies, or not movies, but music and entertainment really, is from YouTube or TikTok, which aren't owned by conservatives. So there's a lot here I want to talk about. There's just we need to have this discussion because I talk with a lot of conservatives, a lot of venture people in the venture space, investors in the in the venture space, and we're very consumed with the idea of if we're going to educate if we're going to keep Gen Z, we need education. And what I mean by education is just we need facts. They need to know the multiple choice answers. They need to be able to fill in the blank. They need to be able to pass these tests. It's a very facts driven. You have to know the facts as to why conservatism or conservatism is important. And so I think this is a drastic mistake. This is a big problem, and it's really really concerning. So first off, I want to thank everybody that's watching right now. This is kind of and it's the really first time really I've gone solo on live. So feel free to engage in the chat. Feel free to talk, ask questions. I'll be happy to bring up your points and engage with you on this. Let's have an open conversation, that sort of thing. The chat is up, and everything is good to go. So, getting back to this point, let's look at. I want to go back in time. We're going to talk about MTV, and with MTV, you had, you know, 70s, 80s, before around the 70s, you had this massive influx of like punk rock music, and you had these bands doing music in their garage, and then come the 80s, MTV launched, and really started to get into the swing of things and became this sort of mainstream cultural institution. And one of the things about MTV was, prior to MTV, around the 70s, a lot of these liberal ideologies were very, very kind of, how you say, like in the alley. Like they weren't really public. They weren't really mainstream. A lot of the boomer worldview was sort of really like the main sort of thing. So how did these ideologies, and this gets into, you know, late 60s as well, but 60s, 70s, a lot of these liberal ideologies really started to become mainstream. And then once MTV became, it became really a force, right? So what happened was you had the hippie movement, you had all these movements that were kind of pushing these liberal mentalities, Woodstock, all this sort of stuff. But then when MTV hit the scene, suddenly there was art and there was music and there was culture that basically rooted these liberal ideologies into a real platform, that people could say, "Hey, I believe in what those musicians are saying, those artists, those bands, these video DJs, VJs." All these guys were really just like, all these younger Gen X guys were able to basically see these ideologies and worldviews that they talk about maybe at the dinner table really enter into like this sort of public mainstream sort of thing. And the movies and the television shows, think about like Three's Company, you think of like all these sort of shows that basically solidified these sort of liberal worldviews, these liberal values, and sort of brought them out of like this sort of like crazy hippie idea into, this is the worldview of this generation, and it sort of locked it in. So art and movies and TV shows were really influential in the way the left propagated and made mainstream these sort of ideologies. And now when you look at Gen Z, you have this massive, amazing movement. Charlie Kirk's been a huge part in sort of propagating these conservative values. But also, I will say a lot of it's rebellion, right? So usually the younger generation rebels against the worldview of their parents, right? So for example, in one real way, Gen X was rebelling against their boomer generation, and then millennials rebelled against the Gen X generation. There's always sort of like a revolt of the generation that came previously. So for Gen Z, they're rebelling against their parents, which is very clearly a leftist, pink haired feminist embracing of transgenderism nonsense, right? That's what Gen Z is rebelling against. And they're rejecting the stories of the left. They're not going to go see movies. They don't want a transgender uh, you know, man to play Princess Zelda, right? That was a few weeks ago, and then it was announced. It's funny, it was announced that that Princess Zelda will actually be played by a normal woman and an unknown actress, which is exactly the way that should be played. And so you have the millennials who are complaining about it and saying, "Oh, they should have given Hunter Schafer a chance. They should have given Hunter Schafer a chance." And it's like, you guys know that Link would have to kiss Hunter Schafer? Like what? Like what's going on here? There's just no common sense. And so that's a good move. But I want to be very clear here. Um, right now, there really isn't media, entertainment, arts, and culture that's story driven for the sake of story. Uh, in other words, uh, where's the entertainment brands that are just focused on just making good comedy? Where's the entertainment brands that just want to tell stupid, dumb stories that don't necessarily have a political message backed, right? Uh, uh, we can see right now with like Babylon B, for example, everything they say and do is towards a political sort of point. Um, uh, it's very rare that there is a Babylon B headline that's just funny for the sake of being funny. And all of our comedy, like we judge whether a good comedian is a good comedian based on his political points of view, political worldview, all these sort of things. Like it's unbelievable how everything has to have this sort of uh, very political left or right sort of stance or position. Look at the Stephen Colbert. Let's talk about the Stephen Colbert thing for a second. This is a really great example of this. So Stephen Colbert, I would agree with Jon Stewart. Actually, he said Monday that the Colbert Report was one of the greatest satirical comedy shows in the history of the world. Um, and it lasted for 10 years. And the ability for Stephen Colbert to embrace that character for a decade and do that show was one of the greatest feats in television, in the history of television. I think 100% absolutely true. We get. I think we can both agree on that. Even if politically you disagreed with Colbert, you can still watch the Colbert Report and go, uh, "That's a funny show." And Stephen Colbert is insanely talented. And then when he went to go do the Late Show, he became this leftist talking head. He turned David Letterman's legacy of insane, stupid, but also intelligent comedy into this sort of late night news talk show uh, that just destroyed the whole brand, and CBS killed it uh, because Gen Z could watch the Colbert Report. I think this is honestly true. Gen Z could watch the Colbert Report and just go, "This is not authentic. This is not real. This is not something I can grasp onto." They just don't. They just have sort of this sort of it's like gaydar, but it's like authenticity. It's like an off-dar, right? They could just tell um, if you're just doing talking points created or you're told to do talking points through mainstream media, or whether or not you're an actual human being that has feelings. You can compare, for example, the popularity of someone like Conan O'Brien among younger audiences versus the popularity of someone like Stephen Colbert, and you just like, it's just no brainer. Like Conan O'Brien is like one of the greatest of all time. He's a comedian's comedian. He understands It's funny because it's funny. It's not. It doesn't matter if the joke is about Trump. Just because you tell a joke about Trump doesn't necessarily mean you're anti-Trump. That's really important. Really key. Distinguishing between true comedy and whatnot. And so the reason I bring all this up um, is because all of the good that's been brought about by Turning Point, by getting all these college kids activated in politics, by Barron Trump getting President Trump, Barron Trump getting President Trump, his dad, to go on Theo Vaughn's podcast, go on Aiden Ross live stream. All of this movement to get Gen Z into these sort of conservative circles is all going to be wiped away. And if this poll is true, uh, which I kind of doubt it is, but if it is true, it signals something very, very concerning. And that is that there is no cultural anchor for Gen Z. All of their conservatism is brought about by rebellion of the absurdity of leftism that it's gone into, and just their ability, and this is really important, their ability to just be able to interpret facts and articles and news and study and determine whether something's true or not, um, uh, just by looking at news and info. They have access to so much news and information. They're very excuse me. They're very, very quick to be able to point that out, to be able to go, oh, no, that's not true, or oh, that's false. So they have access to all this sort of news and information, and they're really able to be able to sort of make these sort of really amazing uh, uh, logical ability. Like they have really amazing logical abilities and ability to reason and to sort through BS in a very incredible way that I don't think other generations had, right? Other generations said, well, if it's in the newspaper, it must be true, right? Well, Fox News says it must be true. If CNN says it must be true. That must be true. And Gen Z doesn't, they just don't go with the party line anymore. They just don't. And I think some of this, you look at what's happening with Trump and the Epstein documents, and Trump was, we're going to release the Epstein files. We're going to release them. We're going to release them. And now it's like, yeah, we're not going to release them. And everybody goes, whoa, what happened to that sort of authenticity? Now, that's what they were attached to. They were attached to this authenticity that Donald Trump was who he says he was. And he did, what he said he was going to do. All these sort of things. Like, this is very, very uh, I think really core to why Trump got the Gen Z vote was because he wasn't a politician. He didn't speak as if he was doing these political talking points. He wasn't trying to win favor with the conservative rhinos. Like all these sort of things are really important. And then over the past few months, we've kind of seen, at least based on appearance, there's probably a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes in terms of draining the swamp and stuff that I believe is still happening. But the general appearance that we're seeing, especially when Trump is asked about Epstein and he goes, people still care about that? It's like, yeah, people like wholeheartedly care about that. It's a big deal. Um, and I think so they're starting to kind of be like, well, because they're not loyal. They're not like Cat Turd where they're just single-handedly devoted to the president no matter what he does. They only support Trump in as much as he is authentic and keeps his promises. And so basically what you have is this loyalty based on facts and data and information, right? So Trump says he's going to release the Epstein documents. We're going to get all the information there. There's going to be prosecutions. There's going to be all this sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden that doesn't happen, even after the complete mess up that was right. The complete all these political influencers, who, by the way, Gen Z absolutely doesn't trust Twitter political influencers. But all these political influencers that just walked out of the White House with these Epstein binders, and then all of a sudden we're gonna 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to get the Epstein documents. I think it's, by the way, just a side note, it's pretty much safe to assume that anytime the government tells you it's going to be 2 weeks to something, you just don't believe it, or that means it's not going to happen. Yeah, don't ever trust the government when they say, well, don't ever trust the government, but especially don't ever trust the government when they tell you it's going to be 2 weeks. That's the number one point. But anyway, so they saw these Epstein documents come out, and they was like, "Oh wait, this is the same stuff that's already been released. That's weird, but we'll wait and see." And we waited and we waited and we waited, and then of course nothing happened, right? And so what you have here is a generation that's core values is authenticity. Their core values are believing in people, believing in what they're being on, people who are honest. And I think, this is sort of the rebellion of the Instagram sort of culture, where you had everybody, or the YouTube or culture too, right? Where you would have these people and they put up these YouTube videos, they put up these perfect family vlogs of how perfect their family is, and then they get a divorce, or there's just drunkenness in the family, abuse and all this sort of nonsense, and they're like, wait a minute, like I thought this was a perfect vlogging family, and then it turned out to be a complete disaster, and the kids were trapped in a basement with chains on and couldn't eat, right? Like that one lady, right? So there's this desire of authenticity that's really important, and I think when you have someone like, let's say, a Kai Cenat, or an Aiden Ross, or you have a Jake or Logan Paul, and they're streaming for hours and hours a day, or you have a Theo Vaughn who's doing hours of podcasts a day, a Joe Rogan who's having a conversation that's 3 hours long. You start to really get to know the person on a very intimate level, and so when that authenticity that they present on camera is betrayed, uh, it's a major blow. And I think that's why we're seeing this sort of authenticity, um, uh, this desire for authenticity. But here's the thing, all of this authenticity is not grounded in a sort of cultural, artistic movement. This is the most important thing I want. If you're listening to this, uh, none of it is grounded in a sincere, authentic movement, of culture, of music, of entertainment, of stories. Everything is politicized. All the art is politicized, and they're not buying politicized art. They're not buying this sort of cultural sort of propaganda, for example, right? Like they're not buying it. I just saw that an article stating that Palantir was about to do movies and TV shows. And I'm like, well, that's really weird because they're a data company and they do a lot of stuff for the government. There's theories that they work very closely with the CIA, and they're part of the deep state. I don't know. I don't know much of what Palantir does at all. But just thinking about it over the past week, I've just been like, well, that's really strange because that's almost like if the CIA were like, it's propaganda, right? So that's not authentic storytelling. It's being used for recruitment, military recruitment to and loyalty to the government, and that's not how you ground people's beliefs. So we don't have a cultural anchor. Gen Z doesn't have an MTV. Gen Z doesn't have a movie and entertainment company that they really back. They don't really care about celebrities, whether Tom Cruise is in a movie. Like that's not what they care about. They care about whether or not it's a good movie. They don't care who's in it, or the actors so much. Hollywood's entire system is built on this celebrity sort of world. and suddenly that doesn't really even matter anymore. They just don't trust it. Um, and so when I speak to conservatives all the time, I get, well, stories are just this sort of side project thing you do in your spare time. Um, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Uh, the truth is that facts, Ben Shapiro has that famous line where he's like, "Oh, facts don't care about your feelings," but that's one of the worst, the most ignorant statements on culture I've ever heard. Because the truth is that feelings don't care about your facts. So we this is just practical, right? When there's movies and TV shows and it's showing transgenders in this positive light, and it's showing that they're normal people and they're not mentally ill and all these sort of things, and then you go and go, well, no, 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 well, they are mentally ill. This is a disease. It's really messed up. And then all of a sudden, people on the left go, "What are you talking about? These are real people." Right? And so this emotional sort of connection that's been created through Hollywood and movies and entertainment over decades is stronger than your facts. So who cares if facts? Well, look, we all get the point of facts don't care about your feelings. We all know what it means. It just means that facts are true. Facts are facts, whether or not you believe in it or not. But what we're talking about here is the importance of having those facts rooted in a true belief, because it's sort of like a debate, right? You listen to a debate, and somebody gives like a really pithy statement. And you're like, "Oh man, he crushed it, crushed it." And then the rebuttal comes up, and the next guy goes and gives his viewpoint of the debate, right? Um, right? And then the guy goes, "Oh man, he got it." And then at the end of the debate, you ask people who won, right? Who wins the debate? Like this is like a theological debate, right? Like Calvinism, Arminianism, transubstantiation, non-Protestant view of communion, whatever the debate is, whether even a political debate, on socialism versus capitalism, whatever the debate is, when you talk to people who saw the debate, they always think that their person who they're emotionally, the worldview that they're emotionally connected to, they always believe that that person won, no matter what. And like, it doesn't matter how bad somebody does at a debate. You remember very early on when Biden and Trump were debating in the debate that Biden just got completely destroyed in. You know, the talking points were, "Oh, Biden did great. Biden stayed calm, and he irritated Trump, right?" And then like a few days later, that started to sort of peel away, and you started to see, no, actually, people actually believe Biden did a really terrible job. Um, and so that sort of gave away. But initially, uh, they stayed true to their emotional attachment on who won the debate. And the same true as Calvinism, Arminianism, or transubstantiation and Protestant view of communion, all these sort of things. No matter how good the opposing side does, you tend to agree with the side that you agreed with before. And that's where we're at right now, where Gen Z is just going from the person that's making these claims that sound right to the person that's making these claims that sound right. And there's no cultural anchor. There's no emotional attachment. And if you're listening to this, I just want to really, really emphasize this point. This is very, very important, very, very key. And first off, thanks everybody. Before I get to it, thanks everybody for watching. Stacy, Mike, Susan, Donald, John, Deborah. Thank you everybody for joining. Please be sure to share, like, comment, engage, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take your questions if you're watching. But the point I want to make is, we have not invested. Conservatives have done an absolutely miserable job at investing in entertainment. $100 million went to over $100 million went to Daily Wire to produce movies and TV shows. It got nowhere. They got, a documentary or two from Matt Walsh. They got two good documentaries from Matt Walsh, which are documentaries. It's not really entertainment for the sake of entertainment. They wasted a lot of money. They supposedly, allegedly laid off a bunch of people at Bentkey, for their children's programming. And we've just done a really bad job of just making stories for the sake of stories. Everything has to be driven towards this political point, right? It's like, it's like we need Greg Gutfields, right? Instead of just saying, you know what, we need just good comedians. We said, no, 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 we need Greg Gutfield because we have to respond to the political comedy of the left. So we have to do that with the political comedy of the right with like a Greg Gutfield sort of character, right? And it just doesn't it's not long lasting. And so this is the point I really want to emphasize. I really want to get out. It's we have to invest in cultural entertainment, cultural brands, art, music, movies, TV shows, fictional stories, and whether it's in books or audio dramas, just we have to invest in entertainment, because without that, and I want to add video games in there. I think video games are really important, for the reasons of which I could do a whole nother live stream, but video games as well. We absolutely we have to have a sort of cultural anchor for our conservative values. We have to have artists that Gen Z can look up to, that they can trust in. We have to have movies and TV shows that when people hear Charlie Kirk making a great factual point, that factual point is then grounded in something that's emotionally compelling as well. Movies and TV shows, and it doesn't have to be done. It doesn't have to be done by making a direct political satire, or making a movie or TV show that has a very strong political sort of point. It's okay to tell just dumb jokes. It's okay to watch, let's say, for example, Josh Johnson, who just started to host The Daily Show. It's okay to watch Josh Johnson, see him make a joke about Trump, and then laugh because it was a well constructed, good joke. Even if you really like Donald Trump, it's totally okay. Right? And it's okay to laugh at jokes and comedians who uh, uh, might make a point that might make you cringe a little. You're like, I don't really believe in that, but that was a funny joke. Uh, and we really have to sort of invest in these sort of things, because my fear is we have this amazing moment right now, this amazing moment where Gen Z is really, really rooted in this conservative idea. Well, they're not really rooted, but they're embracing this conservative ideology. And we're not building out stories. I, Susan, thank you for commenting. She says, "Thank you very much, Marcus. I'm sorry I can't continue to listen in real time. I'd love to be able to watch this later." Yeah, it'll be recorded. Thank you, but be sure to share it. So we have to have stories that are just good. Look, here's the thing: you want to preserve marriage and stop homosexual marriage. You know the best way to do that? The absolute best way to stop homosexual marriage is just make movies that end in a wedding between a man and a woman. Like create love stories where the man is a man and the woman is a woman. You don't have to have this messaging about homosexuality or anything like that in your movies or TV shows. You just don't. You could just tell a good love story, right? That's how you move a generation and you ground those beliefs in something that's more authentic than just not authentic, but entertainment doesn't have to be authentic, but that's more emotionally engaging uh, than just the facts and data, right? So the reason I wanted to do this live stream was because I got this message on Facebook, this comment on Facebook to my post about this Gen Z thing, and the comment was pretty much insane. It's the guy says, I'll read it here. It says, I didn't believe because of art or music. It made no impact on my beliefs whatsoever. And my assumption here, as he's talking about religious beliefs, his religious worldview, um, uh, but so music and art made no impact on my belief whatsoever. I don't see how music and art will help the world. Now, I want you to just join me as I explain how insanely ridiculous that sort of statement is. Assuming, for the sake of uh, clarity, he's talking about his religious beliefs, which I believe he is. He's saying that he doesn't believe in God because of art and music. And I just want to be very, very clear. It's one of the most insane, nonsensical statements I've ever heard in my life. Now, if I ask you, how does someone believe? How does someone come to faith? All these sort of things. Well, it's through the preaching of the word, right? Well, what is the word? Well, the word is scripture. What is scripture? Scripture is one of the greatest Broadway musicals of all time. There's story, there's narrative, there's drama, there's adultery, there's sin and redemption, and it's one of the greatest stories. And in addition to all of that, there's music, there's the Psalms, there's people singing praises. It is one of the greatest Broadway musicals of all time, all of Scripture. God has given, He has chosen before the foundations of the world, and He's going to reveal the truth about what his plan for redemption and how He loves humans. He's going to do that in the form of this Broadway musical, right? This story, this narrative, this epic that's filled with drama and danger and murder and adultery and crime and passion. Um, and it's one of the greatest stories of all time. Yes, it's also a true story. Uh, but uh, but the reason God chose to reveal the gospel to us in the form of narrative is because God created humans to love the things that God loves and to appreciate the things that God appreciates. And one of the things, I think, one of the main things God is really passionate about is art. Um, I, I could do a whole other thing on this, but in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The very first line in Scripture is, look at God, look at His art, look at what He builds, look at how He speaks things into existence just with His words. Look at the stars, look at the heavens, look at the glories of God. Romans says, the invisible attributes of God are clearly seen throughout all creation. The heavens declare the glory of God. The greatest artwork um, we've ever seen and can ever imagine or fathom is all entertainment, right? It's all entertainment. It's stars. It's galaxies. It's universes. It's watching. It's looking at a new puppy. It's looking at creation, looking at baby animals, like just looking at the beauty of a landscape at sunset or a sunrise. In Yellowstone National Park, right? Like these are all artwork, right? And then in Romans it says, this is very, listen to me, like what I'm saying is not just based on conversations I've had with conservatives. It's not just based off of the really bad examples of conservatives trying to do art. What I'm telling you is rooted in a foundational principle of Scripture, and it is this: that the heavens declare the glory of God, that the invisible attributes of God are clearly seen throughout creation. but none of that is capable of bringing someone to saving faith. So they have all the facts, all the data. It's all given to them. They have art and story and all that. Um, but it is a work of God that converts people. But even like having the facts and the data that's given through, analysis of the DNA protein or looking at a microscope and the complexity of a cell, uh, it's still not enough, and yet God still used art as a way to bring about knowledge of Himself in addition to the facts and the data. And this is why you get into, say, evidential sort of apologetics, where you're just going to present, well, look at the proof of the flood. Look at all the millions of millions of layers laid down by rock layer, all covered the ocean, covered in ocean, covered in water, all over the earth. Right? I think that's Ken Ham's favorite line. And you can point out these facts. Look at the facts of the crucifixion. Look at these four testimonies in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Look how well they sync up. Look at the scarlet thread throughout all of Scripture. And you just go, yeah, but that's not that isn't alone. The presenting facts isn't what saves. It is the work of God through the narrative story of what God has done. That's why you have these two words, general revelation and special revelation, right? Special revelation is the actual text, and that is the key, the actual story. Special revelation, right? That's the actual narrative composition of what God's done through history, told as a Broadway musical over the course of 2,000 or more years. Um, and so I really want to emphasize this point, where and the reason is, yes, the Scripture is true. Yes, God created the heavens and the earth. Yes, there was a global flood. All the facts are true. But it's this merging of story together, this merging of facts and data and emotion and art and music and narrative structure and poetry. It's merging of all of that together that really grounds what is true. And so, when we say stuff like facts don't care about your feelings, um, uh, we're completely almost becoming stoic. It's a stoic mentality. It's like you have to have the art, you have to have the beauty, you have to have story, you have to have narrative, poetry, music, art. You have to have it all. And yes, because good music, good movies, good comedy, good jokes are all rooted in some sort of truth. It's why I can listen to a comedian who might tell a joke that's against Trump, and I can still think it's a really good joke because it is rooted in some sort of truth of like Trump's own absurdity, which I think most conservatives would agree. Sometimes Trump is funny, and a lot about Trump is funny, and it's okay to make a joke about him, but you also don't have to be a Stephen Colbert with it, right? You don't have to just make a joke about Trump and expect people to laugh just because it's an anti-Trump joke. That's what destroyed Stephen Colbert, is he lost the storytelling ability that made the Colbert Report so incredible. And so, hear me out. We have to invest in entertainment brands like MTV, like Comedy Central, like Cartoon Network, like Nickelodeon. Uh, we have to invest in story-driven brands that sole focus is story for the sake of story. You cannot just have documentaries and think that documentaries are going to bring about this sort of generational transformation that's going to last for 2 or 3 generations. It's just not how it works. If you're going to bring about multi-generational change, if you're going to bring about multi-generational transformation, you absolutely 100% have to ground those facts into narrative stories. And in some ways, as I said earlier, you have to hide those sort of your actual intention, your actual plot, like your actual key that you're trying to bring about, your key data point. You have to hide that. So yeah, you want people to reject homosexual marriage. So you just make movies where there's a wedding at the end. You just make movies like Princess Bride, where that ends in a wedding. We need more movies that end in a wedding between a man and a woman, and with a strong man and uh, uh, a submissive woman. Um, right? We have to make these sort of things. We have to tell these sort of stories, and we have to build music, and we have to we have well. Part of that's because if you like when you see like Ben Shapiro and he's doing a rap video with Tom McDonald, and you go, "Oh, that's really funny," and then you completely forgot about it. Most of you guys forgot that Ben Shapiro did a rap music video with Tom McDonald until I just brought it up. You're welcome for reminding you of that. But that's the point. Like this, we can't have meme art. Like meme art is ephemeral. It's very fast. It's very quick. It's quickly forgotten. It's based on current events. What we need is stories that inspire people for decades. I mean, like think about like the guys that went to go see um, Star Wars for the first time. They're watching Star Wars, and they didn't know when they went to go see Star Wars that they were going to be these super obsessed Star Wars fans that have held out for the past 40, 50, over 50 years. Like they didn't know that when they went to go see the movie for the first time. Um, you know, and they didn't know that they were going to have kids and that they were going to have grandkids that they were going to take to go see Star Wars movies. They didn't know that when they went to go see the first Star Wars movie that there was going to be debates over what order you should watch all the sequels and prequels in. So that your grandkid can properly experience Star Wars without getting spoilers and know the. I mean, like, nobody knew that. But that's because Star Wars wasn't pushing this sort of political agenda, although it did. It wasn't pushing the sort of political agenda uh, that was over the top and heavy handed. It was just about good storytelling. It was just a good story about killing the dragon and getting the girl, saving the girl from uh, the, the, the bad guy. Um, uh, and that's what made Star Wars so great, but nobody knew that going into it. And so, you know, we have to invest in stories that just exist to be good stories. We have to invest in media and really, I'm specifically entertainment and brands that can ground a lot of these conservative values in this sort of upswell that Gen Z is experiencing right now, and really go after this generation. And listen, every major streaming platform for conservatives over the past 10 years that's choking on my spit here from this nicotine pouch. But where every major attempt at some sort of conservative media has been news oriented or it's been politically motivated. Um, we can look at Shapiro's streaming company. We can look at what Palantir announced that they want to do, uh, and it's all been marketed and targeted towards boomer conservatives. Like that. That's on the real. It's all been marketed and targeted towards older people. So older people who are fed up with the political nonsense of Hollywood say we're going to invest our money, our wealth into building out movies and entertainment for us. And if you look at the history of media, this is a non debatable, obvious as the sun is shining fact. that you do not build cultural media empires by going after older generations. Comedy Central, MTV, Nickelodeon, all of these entertainment brands. And then you think of like South Park, King of the Hill, The Simpsons. Think of like all these Saturday Night Live, whatever TV show you grew up watching. The point is, you grew up watching it. It wasn't new entertainment for you as an older individual. It was entertainment that was made specifically for the college age demographic, which is the key demo of every media company. They want to target the younger generation, but except for conservatives, we want content for 50-year-olds, right? PureFlix, 65-year-old nut, it's core demo, right? Fox News, 65-year-old nut, it's core demo. Daily Wire, 40 years old nut, it's core demo. Uh, you know, you and now we have a much younger generation, thanks to Turning Point, thanks to Barron Trump, all these sort of things, and they're being sort of uh, very, very interested in this sort of conservative movement, and people aren't making entertainment brands for them. Because when you have these conversations with conservatives, they sort of they sort of have this automatic negative ick reaction, ew, to movies and video games, right? It's like video games. Who wants to invest in video games? It makes kids unproductive. Meanwhile, they're forgetting the fact that Osmond Gold and Hassan are getting 70 to 100,000 viewers with each stream. They're making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and they're doing political analysis in between them live streaming the newest video game release, right? So, but it was the video games that made them influential, right? It wasn't it wasn't Hassan's political. He wasn't always doing political analysis, right? It wasn't Osmond Gold. Osmond Gold wasn't always doing political analysis. He found an audience there only after he built out trust by streaming himself live streaming for hours upon hours a day. And so that's my plea. If you've watched this thing as far as you have, first off, thank you. Um, be sure to share, like, subscribe, comment, engage with this post. I'd love to do more Substack live streams. If you'd like me to do more Substack live streams, let me know. But this is a matter that's really, I, I'm deeply, I deeply hold, and that is we have to just invest in stories for the sake of stories, and not stories for the sake of political agendas, not stories for the sake of creating some sort of political point or getting someone into office. That is death of a generation. We'll lose a generation. We'll lose Gen Z if we're not fully invested in making entertainment brands and media that's just fun to watch. Whether that's as a family together with the kids on the couch, or if it's entertainment for moms and dads once the kids go to bed, or whether it's just entertainment for the sake of Gen Z and Gen Alpha who just need to break from study while they're in college. They just need to take their mind off of things. And so that's really important, really key. And so if you're watching this and you do have means to invest and to build entertainment and cultural institutions, I'd ask you to not let what I'm saying just go by the wayside. I'd ask you to not look for the next really quick, fast FOMO investment with the next big name. But what I'd like you to do is consider having a conversation with me and just having just talk about what we're doing, how we're building entertainment for the sake of entertainment for younger brands and unknown artists who you've never heard of, who don't have big followings, who don't have massive social media presences, uh, and the importance of basically investing in grassroots culture and art. In the same way punk rock did, in the same way MTV did, in the same way Comedy Central did, in the same way Adult Swim did, and Cartoon Network. All these sort of things, finding the unheard of young, talented artists and investing in them to tell stories just for the sake of stories. That's really the most important thing we can do right now. We have this opportunity, and we're going to lose this opportunity very fast if we're not very serious about this. And I'm very, very convinced that everybody is wrong about this. All the big political organizations that are investing in these media plays that are just basically used as a means of power and swaying the next election is a guaranteed failure. It'll fail. We don't like it when Stephen Colbert does it, and then conservatives aren't going to like it when we do it. The response to comedy or late night TV destroying itself is not Greg Gutfeld. It's more Conan O'Brien's. Um, and if you don't understand what that means, I can't help you. I can't help you. If you don't understand that Greg Gutfeld is not at the level of a Conan O'Brien and never will be, even though I think Greg Gutfeld will most assuredly agree with that statement, although he probably wouldn't say it publicly uh, because it might upset his contractual negotiations. But I think privately he would agree. Um, if we don't understand the difference between a Conan O'Brien and a Greg Gutfeld, and the important and which one's more important for building long term sustainable culture, then we're gonna lose. Just it's gonna be over. So think about that. Consider that. I'd I'd love to have more conversations with people on that very subject. And if you have a Substack or if you have a podcast and you want me to come on and talk about it more, I'd love to do that as well. Uh, uh, or if you'd like to be a guest on one of my live streams or something, I'd love to have that happen as well too. Again, uh, thank you guys for joining, and please be sure to share this post and this live stream. And uh, I hope to see you again.